Tonight's episode of the 31st Lap Podcast is brought to you by DirtTrackDigest.com. If it's on dirt, it's on Dirt Track Digest.
This is the 31st Lap Podcast, recorded live in the studios of FingerLakes1.com in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now, your host, Chris Marquardt.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the first edition of the 31st Lap Podcast, to come to you live from the new North Park building here at Academy Square in downtown Seneca Falls. Been a little bit of a delay, about a month that we've been away, and a little bit has changed, but then again, also some things have stayed the same in terms of racing here in the Finger Lakes. The big story right now, weather being a real nuisance for everybody front to back in terms of getting their racing season started in full swing. We saw Brewerton lost their opener, pretty much everything last weekend was nixed a day ahead of time. Outlaw, Canandaigua Motorsports Park, Fulton, Brewerton, Utica Rome, all already in the negative column in terms of number of events versus number of attempts. Outlaw canceling a couple days early. We saw Matt Shepard already this season flexing some muscle. He came up with a win at Outlaw. Billy Decker winning again in the High Bank holdup. Steve Payne already getting a win over at Canandaigua Motorsports Park as Canandaigua starts the era of not being dirt sanctioned with their modified division. So lots to keep an eye on as we get into the racing season. However, I'm not 100% sold that we're going to see a whole lot of left-hand turns this weekend, given what the forecast is looking like yet again. Joining us here tonight, as promised, we're going to be talking with Rich Sharpsteen. We saw Rich Sharpsteen, the second win a couple championships back in the 5 years ago or so, over at then BlackRock Speedway. Things have changed a little bit as Rich now moves into a lead tech inspector's role over at Outlaw Speedway, a situation that has sort of forced him out of the car. But nonetheless, that long history, Rich, appreciate you coming on with your family running at Dundee Speedway and Dundee Raceway, BlackRock, and now into the iteration of Outlaw Speedway. Even though you can't get in the car anymore and compete, you're still pretty close to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's track's been in my backyard all my life, so I try and do everything I can to stay involved with the place. So, like you said, not able to be in the car, so doing everything I can to stay involved.
That's one of the things that racing sort of forces you into. Even if you can't race and physically be in the driver's seat, it seems like racing always finds a way to keep you on the inside of it, whether you want to or not. This came together sort of almost accidentally, necessity breeding innovation. You got a phone call from Tyler Seary last year to come and help out at the end of the year, and it's turned into a full-time position over there at Outlaw.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it went. The end of the year shows he was trying to come up with some rules for what to do with their the four-cylinder class mainly, and called and asked my opinion on it, and I gave him what I thought would be competitive so that he could get the most car count to draw from all over the state and Pennsylvania. And then so we went with it, and then we got talking, and he goes, well, he asked if I'd like to come help police some rules, and I said absolutely. So I did that, and then over the winter he asked again if I'd like to come back and help police all year long this year, and here we are.
So is this something that you embrace? I mean, as a racer, somebody who's been in the car, that fire never really leaves you behind. Is this a position that you embrace? Have you wanted to endeavor into some of that tech side of things where you're trying to keep the class equal? I know that four-cylinder division is something that you and your family have spent a lot of time around.
Yeah, I've always kind of wanted to be on the other side of the fence, I guess.
Sure.
As a racer, you always hated the tech inspectors. Always wondered what it was like to be them, so now I am them. So it's kind of neat to be the jerk. So it's something I've always wanted to do, and now I'm getting to do it.
Now, how much, as we led up to opening weekend at Outlaw, so far only a couple weeks have got in between raindrops, How much did your phone ring, and what were those conversations like, moving now from being somebody conversing with competitors to conversing with somebody who might be trying to find a gray area in a rule book that you've written?
My phone rang quite a bit over the winter. It's had a lot of guys compliment me because say that I'm easy to talk to and good for the sport, I guess, is one way it's been put, because I've been around it for so long. And a lot of guys say, like, oh, damn, because I've raced for long enough. I know how to push the gray area, so I know what to look for, especially with the four-cylinder class. So some of them guys were probably a little heartbroken when they heard that I was going to be the one doing it. So I'm sure there's some mixed emotions, but for the most part, a lot of the guys, I haven't heard anybody complaining about it.
So at this point, no friendships have been too awful strained by it, right?
No, none at all, really.
That's good. What did you change to the rule book that has made the four-cylinder class so much more appealing than where it was before, in terms of getting cars from outside the area to come? Outlaw, Black Rock, whatever iteration, it always enjoyed a very strong four-cylinder class. I remember there were some years where they had to run double features on a nightly basis just because there were so many cars entered into the division. All forms of racing took a little bit of a hit in the last several years, just because of the way the economy was. People got out of it, what have you, give it whatever reason. What did you come in and tune and tweak to the rules specifically that helped draw more people from the outside and get that interest level back up?
We just for the regular season rules, we opened them up a little bit, and they combine the front wheel drives and rear wheel drives on a weekly basis.
Right.
We opened them up a little bit so that cars from the southern tier and like your Brewerton and Fulton cars could come down.
Sure.
And cars from Batavia could come down with minimal changes, and the Outlaw Woodhall cars could still be competitive with a little bit of an upgrade without hurting the wallet. Just stuff that I knew from when I was running the class that needed to be upgraded, so we made them a little bit of adjustments, and we upgraded the front wheel drives to make them a little more competitive with the rear wheel drives. And the couple races, or I guess it's a race and a half that the four cylinders have run, has shown that it's real competitive.
Was it a case of just simply allowing the guys to do what they'd been doing before, just taking something that might have been gray area and just saying that this is now legal? Or was there more thought put into that? Because the four cylinders, it seems like it, at least from the outside looking in, I've never looked at one of the budgets for one, that's a hobby stock class. You want to keep it as cost effective as possible. And you alluded to taking a look at the changes and how it would affect those racers' bottom line. You don't want to price it into being a super four-cylinder the way that so many different versions of the street stocks have gone. As they get more and more elaborate, they get more and more expensive, and you get fewer and fewer cars. It ends up being counterproductive when you give the drivers sometimes what they want. So how much consideration did you put into making legal what was already being done and trying to even the playing field and trying to watch that budget and make sure things didn't get too far out of control?
Yeah, the changes we made were changes that could be made that weren't really going to cost the racers any more money. There was stuff that was already being done, like you said, that was already being done and pushed in the gray area. That was hoping it wasn't getting caught.
Right. And
especially on the front wheel drives. With the rear wheel drives, it was one of the big changes was the head rule that was made. Mm-hmm. It was more of a preventative rule because it was a mill rule on the heads. There was preventing guys from taking their head and having to set it on the shelf and going to get a new one cut, because we just took the mill rule away so they could take their head and get it cut to whatever they wanted, instead of having to set that head on the shelf and going and getting a new one cut.
Right. What was, hitting on the topic, what was when you were running and winning championships, winning races, and spending a lot of time at the front, What was your year budget with a 4-cylinder car?
The initial cost over the winter was the big thing, but
Yeah.
you could build a race winning car probably for $3,500 for a rear-wheel drive.
Mm-hmm. You ever get involved with the front-wheel drive stuff? I remember you had a lot of Mustangs. That's not front-wheel drive.
Yeah, that's I've never really messed around with the front-wheel drives. A couple of my buddies have had them.
Mm-hmm.
We built actually two of my buddies come out of our shop with championship for my buddy Jeremy won a front-wheel drive championship to come out of our shop, and my buddy Jared won a front-wheel drive championship, and that come out of our shop. So I personally have just never run one, but we've had them come out of our shop. So
there's certainly a population there. I mean, you see the enduro class has plenty of those, and the enduro class wasn't a whole lot removed from the 4-cylinders. You know, a couple tire changes and a little bit of work underneath the hood, and basically your front wheel drive cars could run with the 4-cylinder class. They just had to get it to a point where there was some parity, because the front wheel drive cars go through the corner so much different than a rear wheel drive car that some people argued that they had a competitive advantage, and some of the front wheel drive guys said that rear wheel drive cars had a competitive advantage. So finding that middle ground where those two entities could coexist peacefully and competitively, it seems like you've hit on something. And having a couple championship cars coming out of the shop certainly gave you something as a blueprint to look at.
yeah, I would definitely say that Outlaw and Paradise are the two tracks where the cars, front wheel and rear wheel drives, whatever, for them two tracks are where they're the equalist. You go to like Woodhall, the front wheel drives always seem to have an advantage. Any place where where the corners are tighter,
Right.
the front wheel drives seem to have a bigger advantage. You go to a track where the corners are a lot more sweeping, the rear wheel drives are having an advantage. But whatever it is about Outlaw and my experience at Paradise seems to be real level playing field for both of them.
You've got some family that's still going to have cars out there. Your dad working on getting a car put together so we can go out and compete, and that's going to carry on a long tradition that started with your grandfather, and then after that, Gene Sharpsteen. That history's got to be pretty nice to sort of carry on with the new hat being a tech inspector at that same track.
Yes, it is. Dad will eventually get his done when he gets done playing with RC cars. That's been our winter hobby, and he just hasn't given up on it yet. Uncle Gene's had his out a few times this year. A couple of my cousins on the Sharpsteen side have already started racing in the southern tier this year. But like Mother Nature's just really taking the fun out of racing altogether this year so far.
What ended up forcing you out of the car as a whole that sort of opened the door for this new chapter in your racing career? What ended up putting you in a situation where you can't drive anymore?
I had some medical issues come up about the beginning of summer last year that just made it so that I was unable to do it, and I ended up having to go to the doctor. And when the doctor says you can't do it, I mean, you can't do it.
Right. Best to listen,
like
right?
I said, I put somebody in the car to finish out the year just because I had it, and then parted ways with the car at the end of the year just because it would have drove me nuts having the car sit there.
Right.
And the idea of being a car owner the temptation would have taken over, and I would have probably tried to ignore the doctor's wishes of not getting in the car. So sat down with the family and thought it was best that the car just went to a new home, and a young kid in town here bought it, and he actually looked really well with it the first night out over here, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him win some races with it this year.
That's good to hear. Obviously, that tough decision has led to some other stuff, but you referenced a minute ago the RC cars. You spent a little bit of time driving those RC cars yourself and found some success with those.
Yes. Yeah, the Mud Boss class is definitely, we've had, me and my family and some of my close friends have had a lot of fun with that over this winter. that's definitely cured the racing itch.
You're going to be following the Northeast Mud Boss Tour this year. It's going to be hitting tracks in New York, Pennsylvania, Virginia. There's dates in Michigan, things along those lines, and that's going to occupy a portion of summer. Hopefully, it doesn't overlap too much with your duties at Outlaw. Something a little bit new. It gives you a chance to travel, and that's something that might be even a little bit different from what you were doing with the four-cylinder, because I don't remember you having the opportunity to do a whole lot of touring, per se, when you were running your car.
No, we didn't have much travel opportunities with it. That's why the Mud Boss thing with the RC cars it's fun to get to travel to new places and do that, and it's relatively cost-effective. That's why the tour like that you got set up is something we're looking forward to this summer. We're going to definitely hit a majority of the races that we can, as long as there's no scheduling conflicts.
Sure. Rich came away with the Tour Championship for the mini series, which included a series of 6 races at Radio Hill Raceway, where Rich races regularly with most of his family down in Dundee, and then on top of that, also 2 at-large races, one of them at Small Addictions RC in Auburn, and one at Underground RC in Fulton. And you have been to a number of tracks now. I saw you were out on the loose dirt at Crystal Valley and Dundee, and you've also spent a little time at the track in Pennsylvania, Van Emmons.
Yep. Yeah, last night we tried the loose dirt out in Crystal Valley, and that was the first time we'd ever tried that, and that was definitely an experience, and nothing like anything else I've ever tried with an RC car. That was a learning curve for sure.
Yeah, that place is a trip. I was up there a couple times, and it is not easy to get a handle on that track at all. The guys that are accustomed to having to backsteer a car, and be it a big car or an RC car, they definitely have an advantage running on the loose dirt. Jim Petro's got a nice facility up there. You wouldn't even know it. You got to go past his house, and you basically go into his backyard, a little ways into the woods, and all of a sudden there's this entire RC complex. But yeah, that loose dirt is a trip.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun last night, and looking forward to going up again this next Wednesday and giving it a try again now that we have a little better idea of what we need to do to get a better handle on the place.
In terms of the racing season, now that you're tied up on Friday nights, it still keeps your Saturdays open. You guys plan on doing any traveling, not necessarily with the cars, but just a chance to get out as a family and see some racing, or are you going to be occupied with some action at Woodhull?
I've gone to Woodhull for a couple of their shows with some friends that are running over there, but me and my mom and them, we plan on hitting some other Saturday night tracks that in years past that we haven't been able to hit because of being tied up with our own racing. There's some tracks that I've been wanting to go to watch, and I just haven't over the years. So
Sure.
we definitely plan on doing that this summer.
That's good. You guys got a real close-knit family, and to be able to get out without the pressure of racing hanging over the top of you, it's probably one of the first times you guys have been able to do that in recent memory.
Yeah, that's for sure. And yeah, normally racing consumes our whole summer, and it's definitely a lot more relaxing this summer, not having the pressure of the race car taking up all our time. But as much as it is relaxing, we really do miss it.
Yeah.
We were just talking about that like a week or so ago, especially we figured out this the first time in about 20 years we haven't had a race car as a family, so
Wow.
it's a little rough, but we're getting through it.
You spend much time working on your dad's car, or doesn't he let you in the shop?
My dad and I live about an hour apart, so
Yeah.
I haven't even, last I knew, he hadn't even taken it off the trailer to start on it from last year yet.
He'll get there. He's got to finish up. He'll get there. Summer's coming in a hurry. He's not missing anything. He's got to put pontoons on it to use it.
Yeah, that's what he said. I talked to him the other day, and he said that he hasn't found a place to buy paddles for it yet, so he ain't worried about starting on it yet.
What about other forms of motorsports? I mean, what else are you guys into? I know that the name has been synonymous, like we said, with that part of Yates County and Dundee for ages. The track's right there in your backyard. You guys ever get into any other kinds of motorsports?
Well, not really.
No.
I'm racing and that, and lately we've been doing a lot of camping.
Yeah.
That's something that we're going to get to do a lot more of this summer, especially now that, like you said, the racing ain't consuming like the whole summer.
Right.
Going to try to take in more NASCAR races this year than we normally do, stuff like that.
How many do you usually do a year? NASCAR races.
Normally we hit 2. I think this year we're going to try to hit 3 or 4.
What 2 do you usually go to?
Normally it's the first Dover race and Martin, and then last year it was the first Dover race, and then we went to Martinsville. The year before that was the Dover race, and then Richmond. I think this year we're doing this first Dover race, then Martinsville, and then I think maybe Richmond and possibly Loudon, and then we're also doing the Eldora for the truck race. That's something we do every year too.
That's a trip.
Yes.
That been to Eldora a couple.
That's absolutely the best dirt track you could ever go to.
Yes. And putting the trucks on that track under the NASCAR sanction was just unbelievable. I mean, talk about going back to the roots. NASCAR used to have so many races, and they would run on dirt, asphalt. The National Tour would make 60 races a year, and sure enough, I never expected that it would come back to that. But having those trucks on Eldora, it certainly did harken back to a lot of the history with NASCAR.
Yes, it's. I think we've only missed one of the truck races since they've been out there, and it's worth every penny you spend to go out there to it. It's an absolute blast out there.
Richmond's a fun track to watch a race at too. We've been to Richmond before.
Yes.
And we've been to Watkins Glen and Pocono, and we've been to Darlington before. If you ever get the chance to get to Darlington, it's a great place to watch a race.
We've talked about that. We're just trying to hit as many as we can because it's Junior's last ride, and that's just, I don't know. He's been my favorite, so I'd like to try to catch as many of them as I can.
Yeah, we see the 88 on its last ride, and on the topic of numbers, your car's always had that Flying X on the side. What's the story behind that number?
I haven't always had it. I used to always be 04 because that's a number, that was a family number. Mm-hmm. And then the X came about mistakenly, actually. I was driving for a buddy of mine, Jared, one night, and I was driving a street stock, and the street stock had troubles, and he's like, well, we got the 4-cylinder sits at the shop if you want to go grab it, and if they'll let you start scratching the feature and run it tonight, go grab it. So we went up and asked the Tower, and Tower was like, yeah, if you get it here in time. Mm-hmm. We run to the shop and grabbed the 4-cylinder and brought it to the track and took the seat out of the street stock and put it in the 4-cylinder, and the 4-cylinder didn't have number, wasn't painted or nothing. And he goes, well, what are you going to do for a number? And somebody said, well, just duct tape an X on it for now.
Right.
And duct taped an X on it, and this like you said, back when they had a ton of 4-cylinders, and I started, I don't know, towards the back of the feature, and drove my way all the way up and was going for the lead, and the announcers started calling it the Flying X, and it just kind of stuck from there.
Right. That's cool. That's a good story. What was the history of the 04? That was the family number for a long time.
Yeah, it was my Uncle Gene actually started off with that number back in the mid to late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So once I started racing, that was the first number I could remember him running before he switched to, well, he went from 04 to, and he got sponsored by a beverage company, and it went to 7-Up.
Mm-hmm.
And when he lost the beverage company, he just went to 7. So I said for a long time that when I started racing, I wanted to be 04 like he was, and that's where the 04 came from.
Gotcha. Is anybody, I'm trying to remember all the numbers now on the side. Nobody has the 04 now, do they? I don't remember.
No.
I can't believe how fast the time went by. We're just about out of time here at the studio. I appreciate you calling in and having a quick conversation, man. And again, congratulations on the new post. Is there anybody that you wanted to make mention of that we haven't hit on, or is there anything that we missed here before we end it for the evening?
Not that I can think of, other than the forecast has changed, and I really hope by the sounds of things, the only night of racing anybody's going to get to see is probably tomorrow night, so hopefully everybody comes out to Outlaw and checks out some racing, because it looks like about the only night of racing that's going to happen is tomorrow night this weekend.
Yeah, it's not promising. We got the Special Olympics up in North Rose, and it's clear-ish right now, and hopefully it doesn't get too ugly up there that close to the lake, and rain it out for the kids that are looking to go compete in the baseball throw and the 1,500 meter dashes, long jumps, and stuff like that up there at North Rose. Everybody from the area is going up there. I'm hoping the weather stays decent for them, and obviously for you guys down there at Outlaw, that you get a little bit of decent weather so that you can get this race in and get that season going forward and get some momentum going for the track.
Yeah, some decent weather would definitely be nice.
Well, again, man, I appreciate you coming on and hanging out for a little while. Congratulations on the Mud Boss Tour Championship that you wrapped up over the winter, and good luck as you move forward in this new venture as head tech with the four-cylinder class and some of the fender classes over at Outlaw Speedway. And also, when you and the family get out on the road for the Mud Boss Tour, and definitely with the camper and camping and spending some time with the family away from the racetrack, make sure you enjoy that because it goes by fast.
Alrighty, thank you.
Hey, thanks, man. We'll catch up with you later.
All right, sounds good.
There goes Rich Sharpsteen taking on a new venture and working over there at Outlaw Speedway. That is going to do it for us tonight here at the all-new Finger Lakes One Studios here at the North Park building at Academy Square on Cayuga Street in Seneca Falls. They moved. They had a bunch of podcasts this week that were successful. We had a little bit of trouble on Monday with Crash Course, but you'll have that in the new digs. We'll give you a better look at the studio here as we move through next week. It's going to be the final round back with myself, and Jason Oldfield's going to be in the studio with me. It'll be the first time he's seen the place. Movers still haven't got the couches in, so I know Brian Tompkins from the Crash Course, he's still looking for those to get here, along with the big comfy chair that he was accustomed to. But at this point, nonetheless, starting to feel very much at home here in the new building with Finger Lakes One, and it's a venture that we're really looking forward to. So appreciate everybody joining us here this week. We will be back in 2 weeks with more circle track related action. That's going to do it for this one. We'll see everybody then.